though not as light as the Phantom, where you can so delicately use your pinky to steer the vehicle. Actually, okay, you can do it here. Requires just a little more effort though. I would say this is an index finger job. Hey crew, I've got the key, this leather-backed key, to that Rolls-Royce Spectre. We are gonna take it for a drive, but first, let's check out how it looks on the inside and outside. The first all-electric Rolls-Royce has a new design with family resemblance, but I would argue makes this the most visually impactful roller on sale. Up front is that familiar Pantheon grille, but it is both shorter and wider, two descriptors that aren't always flattering, but here they certainly are, than its stablemates. Above that, of course, is our Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament. This one's painted in Iguazu Blue, which, depending how the light hits it, either looks blue or gray or even purple. Off to the side are thin LED DRLs and turn signals. Above, projector LED headlights. As standard, the Spectre wears 22-inch wheels that maximize the electric range, but these optional 23s look so much cooler. And they're wrapped in Pirelli P0 all-season tires sized 255 section front and 295 at the rear. The profile is just gorgeous. Massive hood, gradual slope to that roof line, and almost 18 feet of length, decorated by bits of chrome like around the windows. The rear end finishes off with a jutting squared off trunk lid, these narrow vertical LED taillights and turn signals, above a protruding black gloss diffuser. I know this is a spiritual successor to the Phantom Coupe, but it looks so much better. It is the embodiment of the word impressive. I genuinely quivered the first time I saw it. Now here's my question for you. Does the Spectre look like an EV? And the follow-up to that is, should it? Let me know in the comments, and let's check out the interior. Now, if you thought you were going to enter a Rolls-Royce Spectre like a normal vehicle with a handle here and doors that swing like this, you'd be sadly mistaken. Because like the Cullinan, the Ghost, and the Phantom with their coach opening rear doors, the Spectre's only doors are also coach opening. Now that is an entrance, and these are some doors, my goodness, covered in this grace white leather and open pore pal dowel wood as an option, because as standard, the Spectre's doors have the new glittering starlight design, like the Starlight headliner with those twinkling LEDs, but I think the wood is so much classier. Door controls include these 4 one-touch windows, power operation for your door mirrors with a little joystick, how fun. Power folding door mirrors, 2 positions of memory for the driver's seat. You can control the passenger seat by first hitting that button and then using your seat controls. You've got massaging seats, heated seats, ventilated seats, your Rolls-Royce Bespoke audio system as an option with aluminum speaker grates, and then press down on this button to power raise the trunk. And inside, find 13 cubic feet of space. There's also room underneath the floor for your charging cables, and this magnetically holds up top. There's also room for additional goodies. The trunk lid power closes and locks, and take a look at this little icon. That is the silhouette of a Spectre, not just any vehicle. Love that attention to detail. Taking a peek at the front seats now. These ultra thick chairs wrapped in sumptuous leather with Rolls-Royce monogrammed on the headrests, perforated seat centers, lamb's wool carpeting so thick with fluffy pillows for your feet to rest on, Spectre aluminum tread plates, Rolls-Royce made in Goodwood, England plaques. To get to the back seats, pull up on the tabs, angle the seats forward, they will automatically power slide, bidding you access to a pair of welcoming rear chairs. Now this is going to trigger people. I am going to step my shoes onto the lamb's wool carpets, but fret not. If you can afford a Rolls-Royce, you can also afford a detail guy or gal. As the seat moves back to my seating position at 6 feet tall, we'll find I still have knee room and headroom as well. With my head back on the headrest, that gets the thumbs up from me. In the center, we have your aluminum air vents with plungers to open and close those vents. You've got a single fan speed adjustment, but 2 climate settings, rear heated seats, slide back the wood to find 2 cup holders. Under the leather top console is quite a bit of space with 2 USB-C ports. All around me is that open pore wood. I've got leather on the headliner with those twinkling stars, an armrest, window controls, everything I need. I feel fancy. Let's check out the front. But before I hop into those front seats, I can't forget about the umbrella hidden in here. A Rolls-Royce signature. Ducking my head ever so slightly to get inside and merely putting my foot on the brake to close that door. The heated leather steering wheel is more thickly wrapped than I was expecting. Still feels great in the hands. Got wood veneer on the 3 spokes, a digital gauge cluster. Above that is a head-up display. 2 tones of leather on the dashboard, an optional Spectre illuminated fascia on the passenger side with a Rolls-Royce analog clock. Here is your touchscreen infotainment system, which is beautiful and responsive. It's effectively a reskinned version of BMW's iDrive system. Not mad at that. It's got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Beneath the screen, Rolls-Royce has opted to retain physical inputs for volume, media, and climate. Slide this forward for 2 cup holders. You've got a dial to control the infotainment if you don't want to touch the screen. Under the console is more storage space with a wireless charging pad off to the side, 2 USB-C ports, and here is space for sunglasses. Visibility, aided by that small corner window. You've got large door windows. The headrests unfortunately block that small side window, and then the C-pillar is pretty thick. The view at the back also somewhat narrow. Thankfully, there's standard blind spot monitoring with rear cross traffic. And I mean, naked eye visibility would be the only thing you could complain about with this interior. It's stunning. The wood, the leather, the merging of digital and analog. They didn't try to make this too futuristic, and that was the right move. Now let's take the Rolls-Royce Spectre for a drive. All right, let's fire it up. Or should I say, turn it on. And the chimes are the only recognition of the fact that the vehicle is now on because it's electric. Hello, cabin crew. Thank you for joining me for this drive in the Rolls-Royce Spectre. There are no drive modes to choose from here, but we'll start by taking a peek here at the gauge and seeing that we have 184 miles of range left from maybe 5/8 worth of charge in the battery pack. If you've got a full charge, then on the 23-inch wheels, you've got 266 miles of range. If you have the 22-inch wheels, there's 291 miles of range. Throwing it in reverse with the stock here, pulling in and lifting up, that brings up a high-resolution backup camera system here with trajectory lines, a bird's eye view. You have more angles to choose from, including a car wash view or a 3D view where you can scan around the exterior. And it is in fact a Spectre I'm looking at here, but not in the same color as my car, unless they're really not interpreting this Iguazu Blue like I am. Going back to the panorama view and parking view, I'm going to start the backup assist, which is automatic parking assistance. I just use the throttle and the brake, and it does all the steering for me, taking me back out of the space in the same way I got into it. Down into drive, and away we go. And let's begin, as we do, with the world-famous horn test. Yes. Stately, a controlled wave saying, move! And now the turn signal sound. That's an interesting noise. Now, it's interesting, but placeable, because you know what that is? That noise is what they used for the turn signal sound. And that's interesting. It's not what I would say pleasing to hear, because while this is satisfying for a moment, it's also the noise of someone constantly trying to rouse people's attention for a toast. Excuse me, everyone. Yeah, I'm either trying to indicate which lane I'm going to, or I'm about to cheers someone. The powertrain in this Rolls-Royce Spectre is a 6.75 liter twin turbocharged V12. Wait, no, it's not. Because unlike the Colo-Navy, the Ghost, and the Phantom, we don't use a silky smooth twin turbo V12. We've got electrification. Specifically, there's a 102 kilowatt-hour battery pack and 2 electric motors, giving us all-wheel drive and 577 horsepower with 664 pound-feet of torque. The way that is delivered is just like every other EV, silky smooth and silently. And if you think about that, you think about an EV and the natural characteristics of that, they overlap perfectly with what Rolls-Royce has always tried to establish for its cars: smoothness, grace, and silence. In addition to, of course, presence from the exterior and extravagant luxury on the interior. But this Spectre feels very natural with an electric powertrain. I thought I was going to miss the twin-turbo V12 so very much because it is as buttery as internal combustion gets. And I guess if Ferrari or Lamborghini said, hey, no more V12s, we're only doing electrification, which of course they kind of are on that path, then I'd be more upset because I would miss those V12s for the character. But when the V12 in a Rolls-Royce was just for smoothness, it can only be unseated by electrification. And this is a wonderful way to operate a Rolls-Royce. Gently caressing the road with the power. Let's sample this turning radius, wheel fully cranked. And this almost 18-foot long automobile pivots around in a really succinct circle, thanks to the standard rear wheel steering system. And then of course, as soon as I get back on the throttle, we've picked back up on the pace. The ride quality from these adaptive dampers, which in theory are not as sophisticated as the dampers on dampers of some other Rolls-Royce vehicles, and for the weight of this vehicle, 6,500 pounds, and the 23-inch wheels, you would not expect the ride quality to be as good as some other Rolls-Royces, but it is just as sublime. You're still aware of the road surface, and in particular, some harsher impacts do make their way through, but never in a truly perturbing way. This is just velvety smooth on almost everything that you will encounter. And now we got to see whether this EV Rolls is quick to 60. For this real-world 0 to 60 test, I've got my race box set up to record, but it's getting next to no reception because this vehicle is so well insulated. So I'm not sure how accurate, thinks we're moving, we're not. Not sure how accurate this is going to be. We're gonna use it anyway. I don't have to prep anything else on the Spectre. I'm just gonna put my foot down when the light goes green. Here we go. Feel the G-force. And there's 60 in 4.89 seconds, according to this thing. I felt the G's, that felt quicker. And as I felt those G's, I just got more comfortable because these chairs are so darn squishy. You just sink back into them as you rip some speed. And to clarify, Rolls-Royce says this will do 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, and I believe them. I've done enough 0 to 60 runs in enough automobiles to know what a low 4-second run feels like. And so despite the fact that this vehicle is so heavy, the instantaneousness of electric acceleration is surely enough to overcome. And then when it's time to go to the brakes, you slow majestically. And that can be aided by regen braking. Just hit this B button here on the wheel. So as I accelerate, if I pull off the throttle, it immediately starts to slow us. Not in a real one-pedal drive sort of way like some other EVs, but that wouldn't be the Rolls-Royce methodology. They don't want you to have a jolt when you get off the throttle to slow you down. They want it to always be smooth. And they've dialed that in perfectly here. And you'll likely want to leave that regen braking on because the speeds you'll get to in the Spectre will mean you'll hope for some slowing right after you get off the throttle. And the only real clues that you're going this fast are visual because you hear just next to nothing inside this vehicle. I know it's a windier day, but I only know that because of when I rolled down my window or opened my door. And if silence under acceleration is eerie to you, you can go in and use the Rolls-Royce sound. Which is so very ethereal. It's theatrical, almost like it was composed for an epic film. It's kind of cool, but honestly, I prefer it just silent. I mean, after all, that is what you spent $500,000 on. Unparalleled levels of tranquility under any circumstance. And the Spectre feels explicitly well suited to that because this platform shared with the Cullinan, shared with the Phantom, but from the beginning, Rolls-Royce was thinking of an electric vehicle. They were thinking of the Spectre, and so all this extra weight, this battery technology, actually becomes additional levels of insulation. Now, how will that weight respond in an emergency situation? A panic stop at speed or a quick maneuver through the wheel? We're gonna simulate that right now. I will carry speed into this curve with regen braking turned off, so we've got no assists here. It's just gonna be car and friction braking. So at these speeds, going full ABS, oh yes, wow. Shrugged off 6,500 pounds like it's nothing. The steering is heavily boosted, but goodness, this low center of gravity actually gives us stability, and the all-wheel drive system delivering as well. Oh my gosh. Now let's be clear, that was not a sports car level of dynamics, but this thing is actually confidence inspiring. You don't feel unsure of how it's going to respond to your inputs. Heck yes. The steering is, of course, vague and very light, though not as light as the Phantom, where you can so delicately use your pinky to steer the vehicle. Actually, okay, you can do it here. It requires just a little more effort, though. I would say this is an index finger job. Now, as I find myself here on the highway, this is a great opportunity for me to do an NVH level test by just quieting up and listening in. The loudest noise during that time was me moving my hand from one part of the leather-wrapped wheel to another. You can, yes, hear a little bit of wind noise making its way in, and a little bit of tire noise, like right there on that louder road surface. But this is why context is so important, because compared to everything else you can buy, the noises you hear inside this cabin, completely inconsequential. I'm not gonna say I could whisper, and my rear passengers could easily hear what I'm saying, but my fellow passenger up front certainly could, and I would never, ever have to raise my voice to get my message across. Highway driving is also a great opportunity to explore the driving assistance features, triggered on here as I take my hands off the wheel for the adaptive cruise control with steering assistance. Testing how it holds to the center of the lane on a curve. Doing so perfectly. Now the orange indicator on the cage cluster means it does want my hands back on the wheel, because while this is the most sophisticated of any Rolls-Royce in terms of the driving assistance tech, it's not quite as cutting edge as what you get in the latest BMW products like the i7, where you can take your hands off the wheel at highway speeds and just have it do its thing. This, you still need to be involved. To speak of charging for a moment, plugged into a level 2 outlet overnight, call it 12 hours, the Spectre is going to replenish the lion's share of its total range, giving you from 0 overnight, maybe 200 miles of range, which will be plenty. For the average Rolls-Royce owner, they're not gonna need more than that. For a long distance journey, they'll bring out the Cullinan or one of their other 12 vehicles that they surely own. This, with 266 total miles of range on the 23s or 291 on the 22s, will be plenty. And DC fast charging it if you needed more in a single day. If you find one of those, you'll go from 10 to 80% in just about a half hour. My word of the day for this Rolls-Royce Spectre is intrinsic, meaning the essential nature of something. And I'm thinking about this electric powertrain for this car, because more than for any other automaker does electrification and its inherent properties of smoothness and silence make sense in a Rolls-Royce. I think that electrification will become something that is intrinsic to what you expect from these cars. Diving now into pricing and competition. Are you ready? The starting price for a Rolls-Royce Spectre, $423,000. This one, as tested, is $524 grand. Competitors, there really isn't one. There's no other high-end, all-electric luxury coupe you can buy. You'd have to either sacrifice the high-end part, or you'd have to sacrifice the coupe part. So if you want a high-end luxury coupe, you could look at the Bentley Continental GT Speed that starts at $280,000, makes 650 horsepower, gets to 60 in 3.5 seconds, and for what it's worth, has fuel economy ratings of 15 combined MPGe. Or you could look at the Lucid Air Sapphire, an all-electric luxury sedan that starts at $251,000, makes 1,234 horsepower, gets to 60 in 2.0 seconds, and has an all-electric range of 427 miles. So while I suppose you could sort of argue your way into a competitor for this, there really isn't one. And even if there was, it might not matter, because this is one of the most dazzling vehicles I have ever driven. It takes all of the core Rolls-Royce properties of smoothness, of quiet, of comfort, of aesthetic presence, of quality, and it levels them up. So I am fully on board with Rolls-Royce's new electric future, and I can't say that about all automakers who are moving in that direction. Now it's your turn to tell me, if you had this kind of money, would you spend it on the Spectre, or would you choose one of the other vehicles that I mentioned? Let me know, and don't forget to check out my day in the life video with the Spectre, what it's like to actually live with this car. That's coming out soon. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and share the video. Subscribe to the channel, hit that bell to get notified, and I'll see you again next time.